Ahoy, landlubbers! Welcome to our sailing live stream. I'm your host, Mod Aiza, and throughout today's stream, we have an incredible lineup of familiar JMod faces. We're joined today by mods Kieran, Husky, and Elena. Welcome, everyone. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic. Thanks for hosting, Isa. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good, thank you. I'm just recovering from an illness. I think I'm like 75%, so if you hear me coughing and spluttering, that'll be why. But otherwise, yeah, very good. Thank you for asking. How are you doing, Husky?
Yeah, I'm extremely good. Um, Hyped about sailing. It's like, projects coming to an end essentially now, and in that like lull of like, God, like it's over. Do you know what I mean? Like we can kind of relax, but also we kind of can't relax because it's not released yet. So yeah, this is always a special feeling.
Not
Whenever I come to
over.
any
Yeah.
project.
You've also got like post-release feedback to deal with, so you ain't going nowhere for a good few
I
weeks after release. So,
No, I don't. Like I'm there for the first week, and then I'm off for the second week because I need
oh
to use
my
some holidays
God.
before the year's out. So that's I'll be leaving that to Elena.
Fair enough. Well, how do you feel about that, Elena? But before that, how are you doing generally?
I'm doing good. I'm a tiny bit sniffly. I think it's after Comic Con this weekend, which was really cool, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that a bit later. I'm not thrilled about Husky leaving the entire like post-release skill to me though.
Can't believe you'd do like that.
There's thankfully a few more people on the team that can help, so it should be good.
Nice. We've got a few people in chat saying it's sniffle time of the year, and you know what? It absolutely is. It's getting cold. I've had to go out and socialize, so have you, and we're getting ill as a result. Kieran, however, immune system of a god. Absolutely fine. Been out twice, TwitchCon
Maybe
and
I'm just
Comic-Con.
patient zero, just spreading it all while being
Maybe.
immune myself. I don't know.
Okay, well, before I waste any more time, let me try and get through these announcements and not fumble them like I did on the last stream. First and foremost, exclamation mark blog. We're ready to set sail. Are you? Sailing arrives in Gillinor on November 19th, 2025. So soon. See what adventures await on release and beyond by checking out the blog. That is exclamation mark blog for that one. We also have a whole bunch more sailing stuff coming out very soon, so you'll hear about that in the next few days or weeks. But in the meantime, if you don't want to read the blog and you just want to see something cool, I would recommend doing both for what it's worth. But exclamation mark video if you want to see the release date announcement trailer. Super cute video, really well put together. Uber helped us put it together as well. Definitely worth a watch. And you get a little sneak peek of some of the music that's going to be in game as well. If you're looking for an update in regards to our new renderer and the HD project progress, you can read it with exclamation mark HD. And then we have exclamation mark Discord. So to keep everyone informed, the Sailing Discord server is one of the places we've been using to collate the majority of sailing feedback outside of the rest of the social platforms, just because we wanted to have a specific place outside of the official server. But we are fully intending to merge the two together. So 1 week before Sailing's launch, the Sailing Discord server will merge over to the official Discord server. So for anything in regards to official updates, future updates, all that info post-launch, exclamation mark Discord is the place to be. If you haven't already and you are in the Sailing server but not in the official Old School server, make sure you move across. Okay, there we go. Look at that. I didn't fumble once. I'm actually so impressed with myself. But
Sorry, I missed that. Can you repeat that?
which part?
The whole thing.
The whole... No, I'm not going over it all again. You can watch the VOD. I'll go over them again at the end. All right. So it's finally happening. Sailing has a release date. Would you like to introduce yourselves to the chat one more time and let us know what features in Sailing that you worked on? And we'll start with you, Elena.
Oh god, I was hoping to have more time to think on this because the reality is like I've kind of had a finger in everything, like all the whole project. There's very few things within sailing that I've not worked on in some capacity. But I guess to introduce myself first, I'm Marilena, I'm a senior game designer, and I've been on sailing since the very beginning, since before it was sailing. At the time we were talking about like, should we do a new skill at all? So yeah, I've been here since the beginning. Biggest parts that I've contributed to, I would say, is probably the initial like port task system. A lot of designs across the board, and shipwreck salvaging. I've had a fair bit of contribution added to that, especially now at the end as well with the balancing of it all. So And that's probably my highlights. Oh, and ship combat as well. I worked on that.
I guess similar boat to Elena. Like when you've worked on the project as long and stem from a lot of our like OG designs, like it's hard to have just not been a part of everything. I would say the thing I've probably been the least involved in is combat, which like obviously Elena said she was involved in some of that. And probably like I don't know, I was gonna say wasn't involved in customization, and then like towards the end of it, I did just kind of like go through all the facilities that we're building and check all the material builds. So like I did that even if I wasn't there at the start. I think like people will just probably attribute like Barracuda Trials to me the most. That's the obvious one. I would say like I've been like pretty exclusively on that. Like a lot of developers have been there for playtesting, but I did design and develop all of them. Very happy with how like unique and distinct they feel. Like imagine if like I know people are going to compare to rooftop courses in some aspects because you know it's like kind of like a trial or like a course or something, but like imagine if like all of them were bespoke and distinct and thematic to the area. They're so like unique in that way. That was like a big goal of mine. Apart from that, like I don't know if I would like attribute myself to anything directly. Am I like missing something big? Like
Deep sea trolling was a
oh,
lot
deep
of
sea
that was
trolling,
you.
of course.
Yeah.
I
Just
definitely did
worked
the
on it
early
that
designs
long,
of
you
that.
forgot all the main things.
Oh, it's so many things. I guess like deep sea trawling, I was very involved in all of like that blog 2 stuff as well with rewards. So like, you know, coming up with the designs for new food, new potions. I guess very recently, and players will probably then hate me then if I say this, or love me, I don't know. Been very involved in the XP balancing part of the skill for the last like several weeks. So that's like a contentious thing. Not nervous at all in the slightest, by the way.
I'm sure the community will be absolutely reasonable and nothing else.
Yeah, absolutely. Community is always very reasonable when discussing XP rates and balancing.
Tony said, "Don't
been
make it
opposite.
30k XP an hour." Well, they'll be happy to know it's 15k XP.
Wait. For all intents and purposes, that is a joke. Okay, because I
That
know
is a
that's
joke.
getting clipped. and look, he hasn't even gone out yet, and I don't want Husky to be berated.
Hey, but like, what level, guys? Right? Like, 15k XP an hour is a lot of XP an hour at level 1, right? So maybe we're right,
Oh,
maybe we're
no.
wrong. You know?
Can we save that XP talk still a little bit later on?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
plan to discuss that later on. But I've definitely been very involved in that, very spreadsheet heavy, which is a lot of fun, a lot of testing. Yeah.
Nice. I have to ask you a question before we jump onto Kieran's point in terms of his involvement in sailing. But you've done a lot on Barracuda trials, and I saw you going through one of those trials last week, and you looked like you could be signed by a pro team. How fast you were going around that course. Surely there's got to be something in place where you're not allowed to do Barracuda trials for like the first few days of release.
Me? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna have record. Like I saw records in the beta, and I can't replicate those on the speed of boats people had in the beta. So I know, like the first course, I'm never gonna be record on. I definitely had like a ton of fun, very specifically in the second trial, where I guess this is maybe a bit of a story, but I remember setting a time, and I basically set myself up with the boats I expect people to have with those levels for at the level they do the course for the balancing of those. And I remember setting a time, and I'm like, yeah, let's make it this time. And then I like thought it was impossible for an hour. Then like for the next hour, as I came to grips with all the tech and stuff that I was trying to get familiar with, I was like, oh, but what if I do this? And what if I route that? And what if I do that? To the point where I ended up making like several innovations throughout. And then eventually beating the time that I thought was impossible by 20 seconds. On like the perfect run where I made no mistakes that were obvious that I was happy with, you know, like maybe I could cut corners a little bit better, like, you know, that kind of stuff. So that I made the time even lower for the players because I knew I'd beat it by 20 seconds. So I definitely had a ton of fun on that trial, like doing stuff in tech. So I think I'd be fairly good at that. But like, as we know in old school, it's less about like what's the fastest individual time and about consistency, especially in something that is like a training method. It doesn't matter how fast your PB is if you're only completing the course 10% of the time, you know, you're probably not going to be doing too great.
That's fair. Okay. I want to ask you a whole bunch more questions around the trials generally, but I'll save it for a little bit later on. I'll try and fit one in because I don't think the question that I want to ask you is in here. So we'll wait for it. But yeah, Kieran, how about yourself? What have you been involved? What features in sailing have you worked on?
Yeah, well, as most people know nowadays, I'm not in the code. I'm not writing the designs themselves directly anymore. I'm sort of overseeing the project, and most of my role is reviewing, giving feedback, and so on. And I'm sure Elena and Husky can attest to the amount of times I come to them like, "You thought about this? What about that?" And so on. Trying not to annoy everybody too much with thoughts on the skill. But yeah, my role's a bit different now, and just making sure I'm happy with the overall direction and where it's gone. And I'm lucky to have a fantastic group of people who've worked on this project and at the end of the day made my role very easy.
Awesome. Okay, good. Well, I'm also very happy because if you're happy, then I can sit here and confidently wait for the release and know it's going to be a banger. I'm so excited for it. Very much looking forward to seeing how people kind of like play out on the first few days. I was asking around on the Reddit, what kind of play style are people going to adapt? Are you going to be one of the ones that like takes all the resources and try and level sailing as fast as possible, or try and just like make an absolute boatload of money? Because I think some of those early resources for shipbuilding and the facilities and stuff that are on there, like people are going to want to pay for those. So
So
Yeah,
I'll get the
it's
max
something
kit
we
back.
yeah,
Yeah, that too. Something we highlighted, I think, in the last blog as well, like in the testimonials at the bottom, like one of the points was that, like you, for mains at least, like you kind of need to decide, like, do you want to make money or do you want to spend money? Because things are gonna be worth a lot initially.
yeah. And there's some people in chat speculating like, oh, buyable skill. No, I don't think, the intention isn't for the facilities to be a training method as such, but people are going to want them to be able to then, progress further in their sailing journey to get to the other areas that will help them then, skill up faster and do all that other stuff and just generally progress without having to get the resources themselves. Like time is money for people. People will pay for like serious money for small resources, even if you only need a few of them. So. Yeah. Okay. All right. What was the first moment for each of you where you could sit there and say, you know what, sailing feels real in the development process, and how does it feel to be where we are now compared to then?
The
Husky. Oh,
first,
Elena. There we go. I was waiting for someone to go.
yeah,
So Elena,
I'll go.
take
I'll
it.
go. The very first moment that it hit me was when we were plugging in sort of like the skill as just something that you can get XP in, and we had like a little placeholder anchor icon, and like I just like cheated to level myself up, and I could see the little XP drop and like the little like, oh, you're level 2 sailing, and it just hit me that like, wow, we're making a new skill. That's pretty cool. But when it actually felt like sailing, I suppose, is the first time that we sort of were able to test the sort of like world entity tech where you go on a boat and you can move around on the boat whilst the boat is also moving in the world. That was really cool.
I think the thing at time it felt real was like seeing the world from the other side of the coastline, I guess. And I know that's like such a throwaway thing, and people be, yeah, I sailed around the beta, I kind of get it, but like I know a lot of people haven't been on the beta. It's like, do you know how many people, like content creators, were just like sailing around? They're like, oh, I need to go to Musa Point. Yeah, I know where Musa Point is. Then they go like completely the wrong way out in the sea because it's just not ingrained in their head where that route is, right? And I think it's one of those things where like even just like expanding out, and you're like, oh wow, there's Catherby over there, there's Port Khazard. Oh, like I'm now like south of where the Legends quest takes me on, like down by like in the Krasi jungle. And it's just like those moments where you're like seeing the world from a different perspective, and it's like, yeah, this is real. Like this feels like really cool. I also had a moment recently where like it wasn't not quite in the same vein as the question. But when you're like, you could be so like head down in development sometimes, like it's hard to see the bigger picture. But we had some play tests in the last like month or two. We've had them obviously repeatedly throughout, but the last playtest we had where the music kicked in, it's the music from the trailer, is like an actual in-game track. And I remember sailing around, I'm just doing like another 1 to 30 run and stuff and playing around, and then that music's playing and I'm just sort of bopping my head along. And then I woke up the next morning and I'm lying there in bed and the music's still in my head. And I'm like, God, the vibes are so on point. Like this is so like whatever you want to say about sailing, the vibes are on point. The music is cracked. Like everything just sort of came together, like because a lot of times in development you're working on like individual pieces, right, that are like of the puzzle. So just seeing it all sort of come together, that was like a second wave of like we've created something special here, you know.
That track's such a banger. It's so good.
It's always late on when you feel things really come together, and it feels like there's very disconnected jigsaw. But you know, imagine you're placing pieces of a jigsaw together. When you get that one that connects it all together, that's what the last couple of months have started to really feel like for the skill, where all these different beats speak to each other. Things like art and audio coming in, and this goes for every single project, not just sailing. It's like that's when it's like, oh my God, this doesn't just feel like some prototype. It's like this real thing that's happening. And certainly in game, it feels like that. And the first time it felt really real to me was RuneFest, when players got to try it for the first time properly like that. That was really cool. And then obviously the full public alpha that came out of that as well. That was like, oh my God, sailing's out there in people's hands properly. And then we've just the last couple of weeks, I think you yourself and Elena and Modelleni have put together the sort of first release build and did the huge amount of merging of all the code and files and everything. That is like, oh my God, it is going. The release date's out there as well. That felt another moment of like, it's happening, and it's so exciting.
How was the whole like merge process? Because you've got a fair amount of time of development in this skill now, and I'm not technical. I have no real clue how it all works. I probably should know more than I do. But has it been a case of like you just haven't been able to like merge anything in until this point now, or have the things that have like trickled over outside of the engine changes under the hood and stuff to help prepare?
It's so the bulk of the merge has been done like over the last like week or so, and through the last like 2 years when we've been in development, we've kept up to date with like the main stream. So it hasn't been that bad to upload because in theory it shouldn't have any conflicts. Like it should be fine because we've kept up to date with what's in live. But there are like a few oddities here and there. For example, okay, I'm gonna test your game knowledge here, Isa.
I know this one.
If you were to guess,
How do I hide?
if you were to guess right
I'm
now,
not here anymore.
what smithing level do you think you need? And chat, you can guess as well. What smithing level do you think you need to smith a blurite bar?
Oh God. Well, I actually don't remember. Is it you do it through the quest, right? I know that it's the Knight Sword. You get the blurite bar there.
Yeah.
And I know that gives you up to something like some crazy level of smithing early on. I'm gonna say 5.
It's a bit higher. So the skill guide will tell
Damn
you
it.
it's level 8. And the level
Okay.
up message will also tell you it's level 8. In reality, it's level 13. And we saw this in sailing because someone had correctly identified that this was wrong and then changed it to level 10. And I'm like, first of all, why has that changed? And second of all, why is it still wrong? So like it's tidbits like this that we catch in that merge process, and that's why like merging it itself isn't that hard, but like reviewing all the files and seeing what's changed and actually like thinking about should this change and is that change correct? That's a big job. For the blurite one though, apparently that's been in since like before Old School was Old School. But we're fixing it now.
Do you know how many files got changed?
About 2,200. So that's additions, deletions, edits, everything. Sorry, and that's only like scripted files, not like binary files. So anything that's like an animation or like a sprite or anything like that, that's aside from that. 2,200 files is like text-based files that we need to review.
And for a lot of it, it's like, it could be very obvious, right? Like, here's all the boat creation files. It's a new file added with sailing. Very easy to be like, cool, we obviously kind of like review the code, but that's coming across. It's all the stuff sailing touched that's like tertiary to that. Like skill guides are an obvious one where like we've adjusted some skill guides and added some stuff, but there's so many pieces of code where like, especially in a project this large, you just find opportunities where you're like, yeah, this is a little stupid, let's rework this because it will save me. It might take more time now, but it'll save more time in the future. There's so many cases where we're like incentivized to do that, but like I think that's quite often the case when people will be like, hey, like sailing launched and why did smithing break or something like that? And that'll be like the thing where like, so for a lot, in most cases, we try to isolate those if we can and launch them ahead of time, especially like to not complicate with the launch. But those are things. I definitely remember, I think I've told chat the story before, but I remember Trailblazer League very specifically. I rewrote all of smithing for Production Master because Production Master was a hell of a relic to go plug in. And then there was one person who was struggling somewhere in the world who just couldn't complete their family crest quest because for about 16 hours or so, it was impossible to make perfect gold ore. And we tried to hotfix that like at least 6 or 7 times. And the amount of time we couldn't figure out why it was broken or why this person couldn't do it or, all this sort of weird stuff. Someone's just probably doing family crest. And like the quest helper says I should be making perfect gold. Why am I getting regular gold? It was just a funny, like, weird bug on the day of launch. I remember, like, Ed was getting frustrated at it. Lenny had a look at it. We were, like, doing the rounds, like, can you spot what the issue is with perfect gold ore?
The funny part of that as well is, like, someone decided to add a specific ore for a very specific quest and decided to just plug it into, like, the core smithing system instead of doing something bespoke. Kind of wild.
Brilliant. How many files is a typical game update that you would merge or see or impact? Because like 2,200
what do you mean by a
like
typical game update? Like Valamore Part 1? Is that...
Sure.
And that's still quite big,
It's
right?
It's a large one, yeah. Valamore Part 1, yeah. Do you know how many that was?
I don't know. My guess would be like... Oh, it's tough. I want to say it's usually around like... maybe like 10 to 20 new files per project, right? And by project I mean like maybe the fletching activity is like 20 new files.
So we're talking in the realm of like hundreds then, like maybe 200, maybe 300.
Yeah, for additions, but then they probably like edited some existing files, right? So one example is I talked about Blurite. The reason or Blurite, I don't know how you pronounce it to be honest, but the reason we noticed that and the reason it was changed was because someone went into that file to add lead ore, which is one of the new ores that we're adding via sailing. And so whilst that's a new addition, we've edited an existing file because it makes more sense to have all of the ores in one place.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So people are saying like lead ore confirmed. Yeah,
we pulled this.
We've definitely pulled it.
Guys, I can't believe we leaked it.
You guys voted on it. But yeah, like I think the biggest thing with sailing and why it's so many more files is just like there's so much like boat tech stuff. Like it's actually crazy what's under the hood there. In terms of like new additions and then infrastructure and all sorts of stuff like that. Like obviously like we could listen to a very boring tech stream, I suppose, but I could imagine sailing would have so many more new bespoke things needed to handle the content than like something like Varlamore, perhaps.
All right, fair enough. Okay, well, I'm going to move on. I need to stop asking such big questions, but like this next one is also relatively. It could be as big or as small as you like it to be. For anyone that is just joining us, can you sum up in your own words what makes sailing so special?
Big one to put us on the spot for, Isa.
Yeah.
What's the best way to sum it? What makes it so special? It's the skill that feels like it should have always been there, that expands the world and lets you have your own adventures. I don't know, I just feel like I've just made a load of crap up, but...
I think it's a good summary.
Someone quote that, be like, Mod Kieran 2025.
This gonna be like kind of a cheat answer, but it's why it's special to me. And I've wanted a new skill since I maxed in like 2019, and just like that thrill of leveling up again is actually really cool. So to me, like that is what it's about. But obviously, it's way bigger than that, right? It's got new islands, like lots of like new places to explore and stuff like that, which is, something I really love in video games is when I get to explore new places. So for me, that's perfect. But it's just that sheer thrill of like, ooh, level go up.
Nice.
Tile Man mode's got a whole lot more tiles to unlock, let me tell you.
I think for me personally, and like I guess it is a very personal question, right? Like, why is it special to you? But like, sailing has had so many developers either come in for small pieces of time to help out, do things. And I think something that makes Old School RuneScape special to me is that, like, I know like people will say, oh, I really love consistency and all this, but like this game truly is just a beautiful like hodgepodge of different creatives throwing stuff into the game and seeing what sticks. And I feel like, to me, sailing is like, it's obviously got that cohesive, you know, consistency of the skill and the core identities, but like you can go around and feel the different developers like sort of like signatures, I guess, through the different pieces of content. So to me, it scratches that itch where like you'll be like, oh well, port tasks might feel very different to charting, might feel very different to trials, might feel very different to so and so. Like maybe I'm just more in tune with that because I've worked here for so long. Like I can absolutely tell when Ed's written a character's dialogue versus Ash versus someone else, right? But yeah, I don't know. I think that's why it's sort of special to me, because it's just had so much input from so many different, like, awesome, talented creatives across the team.
They're all really good answers. Thank you, everyone. Okay, now I'm going to go over to questions around development. And for those of you at home that are unfamiliar with the live streams, we like pre-prepare a bunch of questions. We try and get some questions from the chat as well. So the reason why I'm going to say the part I'm going to say now is so that you're all aware of it. For those of you that are here with me on the stream, I'm going to just skip a few of the ones that are in the document we're working off because I think that they're questions that we've kind of spoke about before in detail. I just want to maybe just, we can go back to them if we have time. But we'll start off with, how has community feedback shaped the final version of Sailing? Or in a different light, was there any early feedback from internal playtests, for example, that have totally changed your perspectives?
I mean, it's been a part, like the community's been a part of Sailing from the beginning. We wouldn't have Sailing if it wasn't for the community voting it in the first place, right? I remember there being like a ton of feedback on the design and the direction of it back in the refinement stage of it. And then once we started development, we had a lot of talks around like sort of like how should boats work and how should they move and stuff like that. I think that is probably the standout to me, that where we really needed a lot of player validation. And the way we went about it at the time was we had this group of players under an NDA, so they couldn't talk about it outside of talking to us about it. But we talked to them a lot about like, hey, like how should the boats move? We showed them like videos of different prototypes and stuff. And then eventually, once we found something that we were pretty happy with, we shared that like a bit wider with the community as well. But I think that really shaped like a very fundamental part of the skill.
I think for me, and it would be again sort of nodding towards those NDA playtesters who like are obviously going to remain unnamed. You know, if they want to say I was an NDA player from Sailing, that's obviously on them, like post-launch and stuff. But they're in a very opinionated group of people, and I would say for the better. And a lot of that feedback has been like points that they really feel are valuable. Like it's trying to really answer that question, what feels old school, and like are the vibes off or are they not? And you'll see them push back on things for like, you know, repeatedly as you go through or you make tweaks, and it like shows how special and important it is that they'll bring that up a lot. Something that's been like a big talking point with the NTA players is like how important it is that the interactions in the world are like tactile, and not like interface driven, you know, where things like, okay, well, we want stuff on the sails, but we also don't want to overload and bloat it with like, my sails have reverse, half speed, full speed as like all these different options, and that gets messy. And they've been a great place for feedback on like what can be moved to the interface for versus what can't and what should. And you know, they've had various play tests through that, and I think that's been incredibly helpful throughout, because I know it's one of those things that like people either will care a lot about or not care about. But like one thing the tutorial does and makes a point of teaching you is using an item on another item is a very old school RuneScape interaction and interacting with the world. That's why you're trained cooking twice. It's not because shrimp isn't a good meal. It's because we need to teach you can use an item on another item. And I've always thought that's like it's like part of the language of the game to me. And I think that the more interface driven and heavy you get, the more that pulls away. And obviously Sailing needs some interface components. So I think they've been really valuable for striking that balance, if that makes sense.
Nice, thanks, Husky. Anything you wanted to add there, Kieran?
No, I think they've covered it.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, how about a small detail that players should look out for on launch? Anything we're willing to tell those wonderful people that are here watching the stream? Excuse me, there's my throat going.
This is, I mean, I have a few different ones, but like, as you can probably imagine, we've done so many playtests. We've done a lot of like playtests where we just watch people play, and one of the things that you'd be surprised at is how bad people are at using the compass to navigate. Like they can use the minimap and they know to like click the minimap, but actually realizing that like, oh yeah, south is now that way because I moved the camera. Like people get really like lost sometimes, and I think it's just like they're a bit overwhelmed by all the new stuff. Like they go out at sea, and then like there's sharks, there's like islands, and they just get a bit lost in it all, and they kind of forget to look at the compass. But like honestly, if you find yourself lost, like use the world map. You can even change the size of the world map, so you can actually have the world map open while you sail. I think that's a little detail that most people don't actually know about.
Like, if north isn't at the top of my screen, there's no hope. Like, I automatically just think east is right and go that way. But then obviously, there's a lot of people who don't know that. You need to remember your north never eat shredded wheat sort of
That's it.
your little ways to remember it.
That's why I was taught at school. There's another one as well, but I can't remember what it was. It might also be a little bit rude. Yeah.
Never eat sour apples.
Something like naughty elephants squirt water, something like that. But it's obviously talking about out their trunk, and you just laugh there now. And anyway, okay. What about another small detail players should look out for, Husky?
I don't know. I mean, we've included lots of flavor and Easter eggs and stuff that I don't want to go into because, you know, that's like, I guess that's part of the fun is discovering them all.
Give them one thing.
No.
Okay.
I guess like the thing I would like, I guess like maybe this is more of a tip than like a small detail, but like facilities are very important in sailing. That sounds really obvious, you know, oh, like the actual, but I think like people who want to go fast and, you know, like I'm just going to upgrade my boat like when I'm level 50, I guess, because then the upgrades will be better. And I'm like, no, please don't. Upgrade your boat as the levels come in. They're so important to like the way your boat interacts with the world, the content that's accessible. Even just on a fundamental level, every piece of content except salvaging is better when you move faster. So I guess I would just give the tip to people, like, it's probably worth just opening that customization menu and looking at like the little snippets of info at the top, and just seeing, oh, okay, so this is what upgrading my sails does, and this is what upgrading my hull does, and you know, maybe pay attention with your salvaging to like, oh, I've got a new salvaging hook. Maybe it's worth going and upgrading that, right? All these things, because obviously there's obvious increases to XP per hour, you know, from that kind of stuff. But I think that's something where people like, if you're like me and when I play like, especially like a league or something, you forget about your gear and just try to brute force everything through skill alone. But I think like sailing is like so many upgrades that are so meaningful that like that's not an approach I would necessarily recommend if you're rushing through everything on launch.
It's a good point. I'm going to say, because I experienced this quite a lot whilst we were in TwitchCon doing the... we had a small group of people that got to try out sailing as well, similar to how we had people on, you know, the beta and stuff, is don't spacebar. And I know that everyone is going to spacebar anyway, but like the amount of people that even jumping into a league, for example, will spacebar through the tutorial and not realize that they needed to click to unlock their first area, and then will report that they got a bug because they can't get their first relic. No, just don't space. This is the one time that you should not spacebar through stuff. Read the dialogue, do the pandemonium quest, pay attention, because it tells you everything that you need to know. So if you kind of like jump into the very start and you feel lost, it's probably because you weren't listening. There's a wealth of information. I think the team have done a really good job of helping introduce sailing to you. But if you're just kind of like choosing to ignore that, you might have a little bit of a rough time. Yeah, and you know, you might say make it so we don't need to spacebar, damn it. But like, how else are you going to get information other than via a chat box that comes up? You know,
But bro, I need 99 first. I need to go, and that 5 minutes I save on the first quest will make all the difference.
This is actually something that we've talked about a lot. Like, how bad is our game? Like, we don't have a good channel for giving feedback and teaching information. It's all bloody text boxes, which obviously means that players need to read them and then they don't. The amount of times in a playtest you'll be like, someone will be like, "Hey, I don't understand. How do I do this?" And I'm like, "Did you read the dialogue?" "Oh no, I didn't." Or like, "Did you examine the item?" "Oh no, I never thought." And it's like, well, hopefully, like I would just say, hope that people do it. The best reason to not spacebar, though, is that you get to backseat the streamer if you know the answer, right? You get to be, well, actually, stupid streamer, here's the answer to the question, because I'm smart and I listened to Mod Husky and Elena and Kieran and Aiza and didn't spacebar. So,
What do you mean, no one in Twitch chat backseats? That doesn't happen.
You get to be the Abova. And as I see, Foes put a question mark in chat.
Honestly, mine's like super basic, but put the audio on. Like, there are so many new tracks, and like, obviously, fair enough. If you want to go as fast as you physically can and really race to get front page high scores and all that sort of stuff, and some people will want that, but the vibe of just being at sea in RuneScape with the audio on and sailing about and exploring and ticking off the different charting tasks, doing whatever you're doing, it feels so nice. Definitely have audio on. It's going to be an experience.
Audio on required for sailing launch. It's not a question. If you want to wait till you're like 50, 60, 70 and you're like just repeating stuff that you maybe done before, sure, turn it off, you want, put your music on. But audio on mandatory for launch. It's so good.
So what I'm hearing is we need to disable the ability to turn off audio and disable the spacebar.
Yeah. It's the best. What we need to do is just set audio maximum to 100. And as people know in Old School RuneScape, like loud audio for us starts at 5%. So if we just force it to 100,
that would actually be hell. Please don't do that. 100% audio. I think I would. My eardrums would be perforated.
We all know 1%
against Jagex for tinnitus, whatever it's called. I don't know how you pronounce that word.
I'm excited for people to see the login screen art and all that as well.
Oh, there's so many cool little things coming out. Do you know what's amazing is like I know that you guys have like put so much love into this update, and there are so many things that are going to be like relatively insignificant, you know, to the impact of the game, but things that people just don't know about that they're going to be able to go out and explore and discover. I can't wait to just watch people play the content and see all the posts about how they found this particular thing or this reference or whatever it may be.
I can't wait for the memes. They're going to be so good.
I'm going to shout out a couple things here, because this is what this is for, this platform. Like, we can do the whole, like, sailing Q&A, all the FAQ stuff we've answered before, right? And people will discover on launch when they get out. But, like, I will say, like, people are going to spacebar through the when you start the Barracuda trial, this is flyover now that takes you over the area, right? And people are going to go, okay, yeah, cool, like, they're showing me the area, I don't care, like, spacebar, not listen to instructions, of course, blah, blah, blah. But my point is that, like, internally, like, when I showed that, like, hey, I had a cool idea for how to do this, everyone's like, whoa, how did you actually do that? Wait, it's a free cam? You can rotate? And then you explain the cool tech behind it that we got from Engine, and everyone's nerding out internally over how cool that is. Or, like, so, like, players are never going to expect that. Like, are never going to appreciate that, I guess. They're going to go, cool, okay, there's, like, a tutorial thing, move over. But, like, some of the tech stuff is, like, really exciting, you know, that we've shown off. And, like, there's just, it's so hard to, like, get that. Even just, like, Mod Lenny did a bunch of work on a random idea I had near the end, just being like, what if the shipyard wasn't instanced? Because now, like, we got the tech, so, you know, you can have your own personal sort of, like, boat that, like, it's hard to explain in code, but, like, we had to have it as a ship, as an instance before, and now it's not. And how cool it's just going to be to see people go around. Like, I think, like, I struggle to put it into words, but, like, the best feeling and the I guess the biggest blessing I've had working on sailing is, like, if you've ever been in, like, a university school project, and, you know, for people who did well, you're usually, like, the person who did all the work, right? And you're just kind of annoyed that everybody is, like, slacking and not putting in the same effort you are, or getting, like, it's so different in like a team like this for sailing, where, like, you could be pouring in like 110% passion, and then you see that matched and exceeded on the daily by your teammates. Like, I know these are just words to people listening, but, like, like I genuinely feel like I might cry sometimes when I realize like how blessed we are to be in a team like this, right? There are so many cool things and details and extra things, and I'm sure like, yeah, the memes will happen. Yeah, I'm sure we'll get a bunch of feedback. Yeah, there might be a weird bug that everybody laughs about that we didn't see coming, right? But like beyond that, just the amount of passion that is here, like I'm blessed to be in a team this good, let alone like, you know, I'm sure how the players must feel. So
The teams poured their hearts into it. Honestly, like it's such a massive effort over such a long time as well. It's really impressive.
So many
Yeah.
people. It genuinely is so many people who've had a hand in at least a small part of this as well, like across the whole studio. It's crazy how many people have had a contribution to sailing.
Gonna
Someone
start
in
having
chat
to
said,
write the GG post soon.
someone in chat said, so that means Husky's the slacker. And yeah, like when I'm the slacker on this project, like that says something because I feel like I know what I've committed to this project. And if I'm the weakest link, like by God, that says like a lot about everyone else.
I don't even want to begin to imagine how many hours others have been doing if you're considered the slacker, because I know how much you've been putting in. So yeah. Okay, all right. Well, let's go back to some more of the generical, yeah, whatever, that'll do, questions. And how about if you could go back to the start of the project, what would you tell yourself?
It's gonna be okay.
Oh my God, that's so harrowing.
Look, it was terrifying. It's a lot of pressure, you know? It's the first skill ever.
Yeah.
We didn't know how boats were gonna work. We didn't know how, like, we were gonna make it feel like a skill because we kept getting the feedback that it isn't. It's a minigame. So we were
True.
like, we had so many challenges ahead of us. And, you know, we knew that we had to pull a bunch of stuff, like all the stuff on the islands. We didn't know what that looked like yet. There were so many question marks. But here we are, 2 years
it.
later. We did it.
You know, it's actually a really good point, Elena. So maybe, yeah, it's not so harrowing. It is going to be okay. That's what I would tell my old self as well. Yeah, because you're right. It's like when and there was such a long period of time as well where things were actually looking pretty bad in terms of the community sentiment and kind of like reception to the skill overall. Not by everyone by any means, but we had nothing to kind of like showcase for why it could be good instead. So it was just like constantly, okay, we're seeing this negativity. We need to figure out how to address it. We need to figure out how to work through it. We've never done this before. We've got nothing to compare against. And I think for me, I didn't feel like I was okay until those first few polls started coming out and we saw the results coming through. And it was like, oh my God. Okay. Whew. Oh, crazy. All right. What about you, Husky? What would you tell your previous self?
I guess it depends. Like, if it was like tell myself like the Husky that was about to start like skill refinement back before we knew any skill, I would be like, prepare yourself, you're about to become a politician, right? Is like what that would be the advice I'd give myself, because sometimes it felt like that. Like we were designers, sure, during the refinement stage, but like there's so much politics surrounding a new skill that like it's difficult. And it was such a weird feeling. And then like obviously once development started, like and you're back on, you know, steady feet again, you know, developing content. I don't know. Like, I guess if I could do anything, I would be like, here's the secret. Here's how boat movement is actually going to work and feel good in the game. Because by God, we spent a lot of time with a lot of versions of boat movement that didn't work. And like, I know that's like the cheat, right? So go tell people how to do it. Copy the sailing code base, quick time travel, give it to old Husky, right? And then you'll be so much further ahead. But like, I think like just having that idea of boat movement and maybe just telling myself, I guess, don't design things until you know what boat movement looks like. Because like on paper, you think you can design what it should look like, but it was so fundamental just to get boats moving and feeling good to all. Every piece of content was built on that. It's like the core like bit of gameplay people are engaging with, right? Is steering a boat that like even what feels like draft designs don't hold up as well as you think they will until you start playing with it. And I think that might be the advice I'd give myself is like honestly, like until boat movement was done, I maybe should have even been on a completely different project because my time might have been more valuable spent, you know.
I think that's the biggest thing for me as well. Prototype harder and more quickly and be less worried about writing bad code when we're just trying to prove out something. Because the question of ship movement kind of blocks everything else. Like if we don't know how we control the ship or how fast its turning circle is, all these different questions around how ships should move. How do you do a Barracuda trial? How do you know how port tasks might work? Yeah, you can design the core basic elements of it, but you're not going to get them right. And we fleshed out too many design documents on paper when I think we should have spent more time just in the game making things happen and then verifying. Is that fun? Is that not fun? Does that feel right? Does that not feel right? And then flesh out designs. And there's lessons for all of us. Like these projects, this project's bigger than anything we've ever done by some margin, and that creates its own differences. The team's bigger than any other project we've ever had. So like there's lots we've learned from that. And I think if you go back and did sailing from scratch with the basic knowledge we have now, like it would be better. We would have got it done faster. Like there's a few things like that, but we're really, really happy with what we've got, and it's been a hell of a journey to get where we are. And I'm just buzzing to see people get their hands on it and start to play it for real and get a proper XP.
I think that's a point. Like I discussed it in the pre-live stream thing, even just like casually while we were just waiting, right? And I can't emphasize it enough to the players, like how true this is, right? Internally, we'll do like sprint reviews and we'll be showing people, here's a Barracuda trial, here's how port tasks, and then like you'll get like a developer join the team and they'll go, oh, I get it. Do you know what I mean? It's so deep and it's actually really cool and it's connected and all this stuff. Like internally, I would say like for the, there's been a bunch of sailing stakeholders and they're in the know, and there's a bunch of people in sailing, but the people who have never like seen sailing but think they kind of know sailing, they're seeing the tip of the iceberg. And what does that say to the rest of the player base who are just reading a blog or like a weird demo we do as an alpha and beta, right? Like they're not even seeing the tip of the iceberg. Like I'm just so looking forward to sailing launching, and it'll be like a complete reset across the board where like suddenly players actually know what sailing is and what we're talking about, right? Because like I think on both sides of the discussion, either for or against sailing, you've got people who like, idealism in sailing, and they've got all these visions that are, fantasy and dreams, but are not actually going to come true. But then you've got the pessimism who think like, oh, it's just water agility, which it's not, right? Like, so it's like, I think that like leveling of the playing field for all discussion for sailing moving forward will just like, I'm really looking forward to that. And I really just hope players like how to put it, like, you can't like measure your own growth and knowledge on something like as you accumulate knowledge about it, right? Look at like people doing day one Yama and how bad they were, but suddenly like day 2, day 3, it's a different story, right? And people don't remember what that feeling of learning was like, where they were really bad at content. So like that's gonna be the same for sailing, but like magnified tenfold, where like a month into sailing's launch, the community's just understanding of sailing, it's like night and day isn't even a strong enough comparison. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, really looking forward to that.
That was a lovely discussion to just sit back and listen to. Thank you, everyone. I really enjoyed that. Hopefully people back home did too. And you just made me think of a good point, which I know we've spoke about already before, Husky, and one of the questions that I'm going to ask you in a minute is kind of related to it, but it's like, knowing that little like anecdote there that you said, people struggled with Yama on release and no one remembers what it was like to struggle now. And I'm just thinking, people are going to struggle on Sailing's release too. And there's going to be a damn lot of feedback about people that are struggling to do things that don't actually need fixing. They just need to learn how to do it and get familiar with it and become more accustomed to it. And my team is going to have their work cut out for them in filtering through all of that feedback and making sure that the right stuff finds its way to your team and making sure that we make the right changes, which is actually terribly exciting. It's terrifyingly exciting, I should say, instead. So we've never done it before as a team. We've never worked on a new skill and getting feedback for that and what that looks like. That's going to be a new challenge for us to go through as well. So I'm preemptively saying to everyone that is watching the stream right now, maybe just have a little bit of patience with us, because we're going to be figuring this out at the same time that you're figuring out how to play the skill.
On that
point, sorry.
Oh, there's two of you. Come on.
Oh,
I've sparked a discussion.
We'll fight it out. I was just gonna ask, what I'm a player, I'm playing sailing on launch. What is the best way for me to give feedback to yourself, Isa?
Well, the best way to give feedback would be to, for the most part, engaging on the Discord server. We'll have a specific channels all set up for Sailing's launch. We'll have different areas in regards to feedback, bugs that you can raise, or even like suggestions then for future content ideas and such, as well as then maybe even engaging on conversation within Reddit or on X. We look at all social platforms. So if you're posting on socials, it's pretty likely that we will see it. But I think one of the best things to do would be to utilize the channels that we have in the Discord server. And then times like this, when we do our live streams, we're going to be doing a bunch of them, engaging with us in the chat, letting us know your feelings there. I would say that one of the things that we're probably going to want to do in the first couple of weeks of release, because this is still something that we're working through at the moment. We're focusing right now, so I'm speaking on behalf of my team and just getting them signed up for work that we probably haven't all agreed on yet. But in my head, it's like while we're preparing for release, that's the focus. But after release, I'd quite like to see us just having like a series of surveys. We should have all of the new poll system improvements in place and ready and working. Like there's a poll going on at the moment to make sure that they're done, which we'll try and utilize to help us shape feedback as well in terms of sailing. So if we're seeing, for example, on socials generally that there's a whole bunch of things that players want to get changed, well, to help us validate that rather than just going ahead and changing them, we might run a really quick poll for like 1 or 2 days on like the opinion side of things and try and gather players' views there. So yeah, there's no one singular best way. It's whatever works best for the player really. But generally speaking, Discord and Reddit are good places for that, just because it allows for a little bit more discussion than the places of like X, for example. Yeah, I'd like to think as well we're going to do some stage calls. Maybe we'll get some people in there and they can ask us questions too.
On the flip side, I think before even Elena asked her question, everything you just said means that any sailing problem is a skill issue. But
Good one. Okay, talking about skill issue. Are you ready for this one? It's a big question. What's the expected XP per hour with sailing?
That's been asked so many times, and we keep sort of deflecting it a little bit because the reality is, if we try to give a number, the number's probably going to be wrong. We can make good guesses as to where it's going to sit, but even if we give out that number, we're going to get a bunch of criticism about that before you've even tried those training methods. So, I mean, I mentioned it at the beginning of the stream. Kieran, Ed, and we were at Comic-Con this weekend, and the question came up then, and I said something along the lines of, it's going to sit between fletching and rune crafting, which is super broad. And that was kind of intentional. Like, we're not trying to be the fastest skill, we're not trying to be the slowest skill. But what is important to us is that the skill has both time to grow and space to grow as well. It's not like we're going to release sailing and then never touch it again. Every other skill in the game keeps getting updated, and we want to do the same with sailing. But if it's going to have any sort of like satisfying new training methods come in the future, like maybe there's a gap at like, I don't know, like 80 to 90, and we feel like we want to put something there, we need to have the space to actually add something meaningful.
It's really hard as well because the conversation gets warped where someone will just fixate on the XP. And I get it to an extent, right? Like, you're a player, for example, you're not very interested in sailing. Skills are just like a means to an end. Like, I want to get my max cape, I want to be done. And to that player, all they care about is it's fast, because I'm not going to enjoy the content anyway. I know it's not for me. And they'll be like, please just make sailing 500k plus XP an hour, right? Or something like that, which, like, I get that perspective. On the flip side of it, it's like, we're creating a lot of content, and it's like, how would I put it? Like, it's not that, like, it's intentionally slow. Does that make sense? It's just one of those things where, like, you don't just want to breeze through all the unlocks, I guess, and then the point is none of these mattered. So we had a lot of early discussions about sailing XP per hour back, like, because we actually have the numbers now for what it's worth. Like I said, I've done the XP balancing. I'm still not going to give them directly. But we had a realization a lot where a lot of skills have this problem where they're kind of like either a fast skill, like exclusively, like 1 to 99, it's a fast skill. or it's a slow skill, 1 to 99 exclusively. And I think that's kind of a problem. And it's also a problem when skills give their best XP method at, like, for example, like level 50, and then like there's no actual increase in XP the player can get outside of just, you know, skill percentage, you know, how much I succeed at a roll. So something we've set out with sailing, and I believe we've accomplished, is making it so that it's more meaningful throughout. There are absolutely going to be things in sailing that spike your XP per hour beyond what you're seeing, maybe even 5 or 10 levels below, and then it might, you know, slow for a bit and there'll be another spike later on, because then that'll make that feel more significant. There are absolutely facilities that'll impact XP rates quite heavily that we want players to figure out, and there'll be new metas for people to discover. There's going to be unlocks and progression points where, like, getting crewmates will increase port tasks or all that sort of stuff. So it's really difficult to answer that, right? Because the problem is that whenever we give any other skilling method, we come out and say, hey, we're going to do a new fletching activity. And the reason people want to know the XP and why we tend to give it is because it gives perspective in relation to where it sits amongst everything else. If we say it's this XP per hour, okay, it's better than this end, but more intensive, but it's also not quite as intensive as this thing at the top end, right? Because generally intensity equals more rewards with skilling, and that's something we've copied with sailing a lot, where it's either going to give more loot, more XP, or like some combination of that to match its intensity. But like, it's all relative, right? Every single skill is its own sort of thing. And then us just saying an XP number out of context doesn't mean anything, because people don't know what the sailing ecosystem looks like. After looking at the XP numbers and talking to a lot of people internally, just sort of, you know, asking how long do you think it should take to get to this level, I would say I've been meeting those expectations from even people who've not in the sailing content, where, as we've said, it's not the slowest skill, it's not the fastest. I think sailing feels fair, and that's probably not going to be an exciting thing for people who are wanting it to be fast. But ultimately, like, it's going to come down to, we'll review this a lot in feedback. It shouldn't just be made faster for the sake of it, but we'll probably look at, like, you know, where are elements where perhaps there are bits of stagnation, or where does the other moments where the content, you know, gets boring, in which case it might be an increase in XP where we've missed the mark a little bit. But the other thing as well is that even the numbers internally that we've got, players might just find abuse cases to go even higher, right? The truth about Old School and why players can stomach larger grinds is because we're still here. Like, this isn't a commitment. This isn't a game that you finish and speed run, right? This is a game where your time commitments matter, you know? So yeah, I don't know what to say. Hopefully that kind of gives some perspective as to why, one, it's difficult for us to give a number, because people just will run away with it. They'll do stuff. We might not actually hit it, even with all the best spreadsheets and balancing in the world. But also rest assured that this is something we're going to evaluate post-launch. It's just really, it's not an easy question to answer. Anyone who's saying, just say the number, it's not difficult, just make it this much XP, please apply for my job, because after doing all the balancing, like, I can tell you this is difficult.
Did you need a microphone so you can just drop it after that? That was a banger of a line. Yeah, I think that was really well answered, though. And I'm just going to reiterate one of the things that you said towards the end there, Husky. Not the apply for your job. I'd actually quite like for you to stay. But hey, if we get some great designers come into the team as a result of that, then brilliant. I'm all for it. But it's like, just remember what kind of team we have here, guys, right? If it's absolutely crap, right, and we've completely missed the mark, do you really think that we're not going to change it? That we're not going to do work to make that better? Like, we're a game that is built on community feedback. And I think time and time again, we've proven that we listen, that we make changes when the changes are important for us to make them. I think the only times where we won't make changes that people ask for is if it's like damaging to the long-term health of the game. And there's times where we just have to make that hard decision where it's like, as much as you might want this, we genuinely cannot do it. But I would say that is very far and few between. And the reason why I can say that so confidently is because I truly believe it. And I don't think it's something that we should be hiding away from. Like, as a team, I'm proud of the fact that I know that if I came with feedback from you guys at home and said, look, this actually really is a problem, can we look into it? That everyone in this call right here and everyone else within the rest of the Old School team will listen to that. and they will spend their time looking into what's possible, what can be changed, what can be tweaked here or there, and what new things can be added into it. So I'm confident in knowing that if for whatever reason we've got it wrong, whether that's because it's too fast, whether it's because it's too slow, whether it's because there's not enough, whether there's too much, that yeah, a week or two, it might be a little bit rough. Worst case scenario, but it's not going to be forever. It will get fixed. It will get improved upon. It will get iterated on, and we'll come out of it being like, damn, that wasn't so bad. Just like earlier on, Madalena said if she could go back and tell herself one thing, it would be, it's going to be okay. So I'm going to flip that back onto the community and say, it's going to be okay. We're going to be here with you. You're going to be there with us. We're going to work on it together. It is already shaped up to be one of the best updates I think that the game has ever seen. So I'm really looking forward to getting everyone to experience it and actually working through that feedback. So have a little bit of faith and just know that change will come if it's needed.
I do have something, I guess, that will hopefully appease some people a little bit that doesn't actually give a number away.
Ooh, okay.
So something we felt actually quite strongly internally is that, like, especially when it comes to gathering stuff, like obviously, like, yeah, magic logs back in the day were designed to be like low XP because they're expensive and that never end up being the same. Generally, when it comes to an activity like shipwreck salvaging, we've tried to make sure that the next shipwreck is a higher XP per hour than the previous shipwreck. That's a solid truth throughout sailing, assuming you're keeping up with various upgrades and that kind of stuff. And even right now, I'm wondering if I've been too generous to the AFK XP methods, like the more AFK ones where you just sit there, salvage, and fill up your inventory. I kind of wonder if they're too close to the top end of like the really sweaty stuff. But hopefully, I guess that gives some reassurance to players who are like, we've seen like, I'm telling you, like, we're not talking shooting star XP rates. I would say we've been fairly generous with this. So for those who are maybe not feeling it or take this a bit more casually, you're probably going to expect better XP rates than you're expecting. And I think most of the conversation will be, what does the actual top end look like? Where, like, maybe people would want more, but that's mostly because we've left gaps, as Elena said.
It's also not as AFK as shooting stars. just to be clear,
it's absolutely
on that.
not. You'll have to be filling up your cargo hold and considering whether you're dropping stuff if you want to stay there longer instead of sailing back to port. And there's a bit more stuff. But in general, I would consider, like, I look at the AFK salvaging, which is like our benchmark for this is the lowest XP per hour in sailing, because that makes sense. It's AFK salvaging. It's literally the slowest, least intensive thing you can do. And I look at those numbers and time to 99, and I'm like, yeah, we've been fairly generous there, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah, the time to 99 stuff all depends on which methods you use and choose to prioritize. But like, I think based on the hours to 99 that we're aiming for and we think we're trying to get, this feels perfectly appropriate for where sailing is as a skill. The fastest skills are the super viable ones. You can go and get a ridiculous construction XP an hour, right? We're not going to do that. But also, we don't want it to be like agility, and we don't want it to be like runecrafting and stuff that people are calling out. I think it feels fair. It feels appropriate for the level of engagement you have to put into sailing based on the methods you're choosing. So actually, I'm really quite confident with it personally, and I think you'll all have a great time. But if you don't, let us know. The other thing to highlight that I wanted to say was, you don't start this skill with a 1 to 99 efficiency guide on the wiki. Or a YouTube guide by some creator who's got it spot on already for you, for all the metas worked out. There is going to be time for you to all work out the meta and the best ways to train. So give it time as well. Give it people to figure this all out, and you'll get a guide in no time as well. And people will figure it out. So more than likely, the time it takes you to go 1 to 50 in sailing, it's going to get faster just a few weeks later, because people will work things out as well.
And if we've succeeded at what we're trying to do, there will be some different methods being meta at different points in the skill as well. It's not always going to be the same thing.
Which is, by the just nature of that, by the way, community sharing experiences, because, like, for example, someone will pick one method and they'll say this is how fast they get from 30 to 40, and someone else will do another method. No one's redoing their 30 to 40 and seeing, I wonder if this method's faster, right? They're comparing and contrasting their own notes and stuff. We have intentionally created moments where we're like, we kind of expect this activity to get a bit of time in the spotlight, this one to be that. We expect this to be like an interesting unlock where someone goes, actually, I'm going to go try that out specifically. And it might get a bit of a spotlight at moments where it's relevant. So it should hopefully feel like a very diverse journey for those who are keen to try out different methods in the spotlight. I think the one I might shout out a little bit as just a bit of a precursor is we have intentionally made deep sea trawling not really a good training method for either skill. It's mostly about the rewards that are the fish, because we don't want this to be a really high XP method and then all the new fish gets devalued because everyone's doing it for XP. So deep sea trawling's like its own separate thing that's not like a sailing training method necessarily, even though you are getting sailing XP while doing it. It's more do it because you want the rewards. So maybe if you're excited for the deep sea trawling unlock for XP, I would say maybe don't. Everything I said applies to not deep sea trawling, essentially. But generally, like if you're getting a cool new unlock, maybe have the thought to experiment a bit. Or as people said, if you want to wait a few days and then see what people are posting in guides. I can imagine there'll be so many YouTubers being, I have the fastest way methods to get to 99 sailing. I'll be wrong in a couple of weeks. Because everyone will have different opinions, right?
But you got to clickbait a YouTube title. You got to get it in there, don't you? So
you got to play the algorithm. You have to.
Got to play the algorithm. World's fastest 99 sailing.
I realize we've already overrun a little bit, but there is like one question that I want to ask that you are welcome to say no and not give any info at all to it. That is completely fine. The chat may not like it, but I'm curious because you've mentioned here, Husky, a difference in terms of training methods, and that deep sea trawling isn't necessarily going to be a good XP per hour method. Does the team already have an idea on what the fastest way to train sailing will be?
Yes.
Do you want to say what it is?
No, because it revolves around like what I said there.
Okay, so like these unlocks that could potentially give you access to a thing that you might want to try out. Okay.
I would say, as a general rule of thumb, based on what I've said in this live stream, what people can take away, the more effort you're putting in, the more rewards you're probably going to get. But also that's weighted by the level you unlocked it, right? For example, like I guess the obvious example is the first Barracuda trial is probably really good when you unlock the first Barracuda trial, because Barracuda trials are really intensive pieces of content. And that's going to fall off at some point because it's only a level 30 training method. That's kind of been the approach to that. But yes, I can tell you how long it takes just AFKing every shipwreck with obviously no context switching, time loss, upgrading. I can tell you how long that takes to get to 99. I can tell you how long it does it if you're just tick manipulating. I can tell you if you're doing port tasks. Hopefully, port tasks are harder to balance because there's a bit more unknowns in routing and options available to players. And I can tell you like how fast if you only do Barracuda trials, and if you only do them at Swordfish versus only do them in Sharp versus only do it Marlin. And then I've got an aggregate table that says, based on what is the best at every single level, here's all the methods. So yes, I have those answers on paper if spreadsheets can be believed.
I can't wait for the community to prove us wrong as well.
And
just find some busted methods.
I can't wait for me to have to double check math because the community found something else, or there was an interaction we never accounted for in the math that suddenly means we need to rebuild them. But yes, we do know what the fastest methods are and at what order and when you should consider swapping and when you shouldn't. Also, maybe when you should consider charting versus not charting. That's also something that comes into it. But this is such a complex thing. This is why given XP per hour is so difficult, because there's so many moving parts. And then I'm absolutely sure players will optimize it beyond what we were capable of, right? Because I'm not the smartest developer. I'm not the best at math, right? I'd like to think I'm competent enough to get by, and I have a very good team to do stuff. But there are some bloody geniuses out there in the community who have nothing better to do than map out every single tick with lots of other considerations. So
I think part of the fun for the community will be figuring that stuff out though as well. Like there's a lot of joy in exploring that, and we've said from the beginning, exploration is a big part of sailing, and that includes like what's the best XP rates at different methods at different levels as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think you should go undercover, Husky, and make a new YouTube channel and beat all of the creators to all the best methods.
If only we could all take the day off work and go and pull it ourselves.
No, but that alone for me at least instills confidence. Like I was confident anyway. I know that you'll do your best, and like I said earlier, if it turns out to have been not to expectations, we'll change it. So yeah, but hearing you talking about the fact that you've thought about all these different things, these different interactions, how that all plays out as part of your balancing, very interesting. And maybe after like a month of sailing, you might be willing to share some of that early work. If you keep a hold of the copy that you have now, we can refer back to it and just kind of like compare to see how close were you to kind of like what players hit and the expectations that you had versus the reality.
It's really good actually because it shows what we're expecting, right? And then if the XP rates that we're expecting people to get are not what people are getting in practice, like people are actually getting in practice way lower, those are good areas for us to consider buffing because, hey, I expected people to get this much XP per hour. Turns out we're off. But obviously, like there's so many variables. Like how do you count, like, I went for a cigarette break after a trial? Do you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing, and then stop that XP per hour, obviously. People are going to get less then, right? They take breaks and stuff, which is natural, right? Or like I went to go and upgrade my ship and then had to like look up all the things for upgrades, and how do you account for that time, right? It's a complex thing to try and map out someone's entire journey, but like, I mean, yeah, people will be 99 at least within the week, right? Like people are going hard, so that's fairly confident. I can fairly confidently say that.
Yeah, so I just lost it there because out of all the things that someone could have done for a break, your mind went with for a cigarette, and I haven't known anyone smoking. Actually,
I don't smoke, so I don't know why my brain presented
but it's like,
that.
get up, stretch your legs, get a glass of water, maybe get some food. Now it's time for a ciggy and a zin.
Another glass of whiskey, throw one back
Double
to.
it up. Anyway, keep yourselves healthy during the grind, folks. Make sure you got plenty of water, plenty of foods. Keep yourselves nourished and do stretch often. But we have gone over, so unless there's anything else that you lovely folks that have joined me here on the stream today want to cover, I think we can call it there until the next one. No? All right, the silence. Okay. Let me quick fire then through the announcements. We've got ! blog. If you do want to see everything in regards to the sailing launch announce post, ! blog for that. Actually, before I carry on with the announcements, there was one of the questions in here kind of like talking about anything that players could do to prepare for sailing. And I think I didn't ask it, we didn't have time, but I'm just going to point out that in the next couple of days, maybe leading into next week, we'll see how we get on with finishing it up. But we do actually have a blog that's going to be coming out that's going to help you in terms of what you need to do to get ready for sailing. It's going to talk about what to expect on day of update, downtime, all that kind of stuff. So keep an eye out for that. We'll promote it across on socials. We'll have it pinned in the Discord server and all that good stuff. So that will be a good place to go to for all of that info. And sorry that we've not had a chance to cover it in the stream today. But if you haven't already, also make sure you check out the sailing release date announcement trailer, ! video for that. Whilst you're there, give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Really helps us out in terms of getting Old School's name out there. So it's free for you to help us promote the game even further. Thank you. We love you so much for it. ! HD, if you've been interested in an update regarding the renderer that we put out recently that was in beta, as well as the HD project generally, you can check it out with ! HD. And then last but not least, we have two real big Discord servers at the moment, the official Discord server and then the sailing Discord server. We will be closing the sailing Discord server down 1 week before sailing's launch. So head over to the official server for future updates post-launch. We're going to be using that to gather a load of feedback and stuff. ! Discord for that one. If you are in the sailing Discord server, make sure you've joined the official server as well, because we will just be closing that down and you'll no longer be able to post or engage in there. Otherwise, I just want to say a massive thank you to Elena, to Kieran, and to Husky for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much to Mod Blossom as well for helping out, getting everything set up, to Mod Light for getting everything prepared, and to Mod Yumi as well for helping out with all the moderation and everything else that's been really good out there. And lastly, a massive thank you to everyone in chat and those of you that have been watching. It's been thoroughly enjoyable. I've had a great time reading your messages, even if some of them were questionable, but maybe not as questionable as some of the things that I've said myself today. So that's just the way it goes. All right, on that note, have a great evening. We'll see you in the next one. Thank you again. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.